Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video I'll be offering you some possible interpretations that an audience might have had to this play, and also offering you the plausible intentions that Priestley could have had for crafting this play in Spectacles. So let's kick off with Priestley. He seeks to remind audience members of their social responsibility, especially to the vulnerable and the less fortunate. He's showing the pitfalls of a capitalist society and how the audience should care more about socialist ideals. If nothing else, as a socialist, Priestley is endorsing socialist ideals that uphold the idea that society should be more equal and seek to care for those who have less opportunity to give their own voice. He's emphasising the futility of society as a whole for the vulnerable if individuals in the audience, the new younger generations, do not take action, and instead, if they don't, how they will repeat the mistakes of their Edwardian elders. He's definitely sharing that every action has a consequence and re-establishing that the pre-war Edwardian ideals and attitudes of the wealthy were completely flawed and selfish. Perhaps he's also teaching men and women that they are equal to each other. Eva Smith is ultimately treated badly at the hands of men and women, but equality should be taken more seriously, or at least that's the ideal that Priestley is projecting on the audience. So let's switch over now and consider what post-war audience members might have taken away from his play. Well, they're forced to reflect on their own ideals and philosophy, whether that's on capitalism or socialism. They're definitely being pushed to re-examine how wealth can blind others to their social responsibility for the vulnerable in society. Let's take, for example, the older generation and Gerald. Perhaps an audience would condemn the arrogance of Mr. and Mrs. Burling for not showing any remorse as the play progresses and unfolds. Even when it's blatant, they both play a part in the downfall and demise of Eva Smith. Perhaps the audience would also evaluate how much power privilege can give someone, and how the wars that the audience would have lived through by this point, both World War I and World War II, could have been avoided without the blood and fire and anguish that the inspector had warned might happen. The dramatic irony wouldn't be lost on a post-war audience. In fact, it would be very touching in a brutal way, a bit too close to the bone, even though this play is set in Edwardian times. Post-war audience members would be passionately hoping and seeking for their generation to change the future, and potentially seeking not to repeat the mistakes that were made in Edwardian Britain. That's mainly going to be coming from younger audience members. Now, Priestley's potentially saying to his audience, don't just be a champagne socialist. Now, a champagne socialist is simply someone who talks the talk about caring about equality, but frankly enjoys their fancy glass of fizzy bubbly and doesn't mind not getting their hands dirty. But then there's another side to this. What about the older generation sat in the audience? Not all of them will agree with Priestley. No doubt, to be sat in the auditorium of a theatre, you have to be quite wealthy. There is a sense in which some post-war audience members might resent Priestley's ideals. They saw him as a lunatic for his socialist ideals, especially if you've lived through and you are privileged. You might resent the kind of comment he's making about your judgment. So I suppose the question to leave you with is, which of these reactions do you still have upon watching or thinking about this play today? Do you believe that Priestley is simply trying to stir things up for the audience? Or is he translating a message of inequality that still permeates into your life and our society today? If so, that's worth reflecting on, whether that's in analytical writing or just considering that that is a great interpretation that you have that could definitely show not just an examiner, but anyone who's interested exactly why you have an interpretation. Best of luck. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?